Welcome to the channel. I'm Hesty, Hesterman Motorworks. Today, we're going to remove the center console from a Beetle. It's a fairly simple process, but it can be a little bit tricky if you don't know where the screws are. So we're going to go through where the screws are and how to get the stereo out here on the bench, and then we'll go see what it looks like in the car. This is valid for 98 through 2010 Beetles. There is a slight difference between the 98 through 05 and the 6 through 10 Beetle, and I'll point that out here in a moment. Tools you're gonna need to get the center console out. The first is a T20 Torx driver. It needs to be 7 inches or shorter. If it's longer than 7 inches, you won't be able to fit it underneath. It'll hit the center console before you can get those screws out. So if your bit is longer than that, or your driver is longer than that, you can use something like this with a T20 bit in it. A plastic pry tool will probably come in very handy. This one is one of my favorites. This one can work also. You can get away without these. You can use a screwdriver, but you run the risk of marring up your plastic if you use a metal screwdriver to do this. A small flathead screwdriver is really handy for getting your electrical connections undone. And then the last thing you'll need is stereo tools, the stereo release tools. If you have the factory stereo, they're gonna look like that probably. That's the tip that you need. This is a multi-set that has all kinds of different ones on it. Comes from Amazon by Built Tools. They're about 20 bucks. That works really well. If you don't have those, there are plenty that you can get online or at a stereo store or maybe even Walmart. These are the cheapest ones I've ever seen. I've gotten them free with a stereo from Crutchfield. I've also seen them for sale for $2. That works. I've also seen these with 3 different tips on. This is the tip that we're gonna need. But some kind of stereo tool. If you have an aftermarket stereo, that's fine. My directions, of course, apply to the factory stereo. I can't cover all the different stereos out there. So you'll need a way to release whatever stereo you have in the car to get it out, to get to the screws. Because we're working on the electrical and we're gonna have the doors open for probably 20 minutes, I recommend unhooking the battery while you do this. To unhook the battery, you're gonna need either a 10mm open end or a small ratchet with a 10mm bit on it, and you should be able to unhook the battery. All right, let's have a look at our console. There are 8 screws you have to remove for this to slide out of the car. Unfortunately, all 8 of them, in classic VW fashion, are covered by something else. So we have to take a couple of other things out first. The first step is to get this lower console off. This lower console is held on by 4 screws. 2 of those screws in the front are covered. So you have your function buttons here. You have to pop off these side panels. If you have seat heaters, you'll have a little side panel here and here. You pop those out by prying them. Sometimes you have to stick a screwdriver or a plastic pry tool in behind it and gently pop those off. This plastic is all brittle because it's old. So as you can, go slowly and gently wherever you can. There are 2 T20 Torx screws, one here and one here, and then underneath there'll be one there and one there. Once you get those 4 off, this panel will come off by dropping the back as far as you can. Then you have to be careful because there's a plastic pin that lines up in the lower hole, the upper holes for the screw. That pin, this one's already broken off, but be careful not to break those off as you swing this down and disengage the lip at the top. Now there will be wires hooked to all these switches, so it won't be quite so easy to bring it down. You can bring it down a little bit, reach up underneath it, pull the wires through a little bit. Once you get it to about there, you should be able to drop that out, and there you can see the lip that catches up underneath here. Once you get that off, it'll be hanging by the wires of your function switches. In this case, there's 4 of them. The 2 seat heaters, the rear window defrost, and the stabilization system. On 98 through 05 cars, the center one will be your hazard switch. But never fear, they're color coded. The plugs just pull off the back, but sometimes you have to take a little screwdriver and slide it in here to get it started. Now, because of that, I recommend unhooking your battery before you start on this. Plus, you're gonna have the doors open to get into the car and the battery will go dead. So before we even start, let's unhook the battery. Get them started with the screwdriver if you need to, and then pull them straight back. Then this piece will be out of your way. Some cars have a small blue LED in this hole here. If that's the case, push it down a little bit and swing it out, or you can unplug it. I find them very difficult to unplug, so I just flip it down, turn it sideways, and slide it back up through the hole. Then you'll be able to get the lower panel out of your way. The upper screws are hidden by this forward panel. That panel snaps in and out. It runs on that pin, and then these 2 tabs here and here fit into those holes. So when it is engaged, it can be tricky. It pushes forward towards the windshield. Sometimes you have to use a pry tool in between them to pop that out, and sometimes you even have to give it a little bump with the palm of your hand. Again, go as gentle as you can to disengage it. It takes just a little bit of force to disengage those. That slides forward. Now that piece is out of the way. The trickiest bit is getting the stereo out. And yes, you definitely have to take the stereo out to get this out of the car. If you have a factory stereo, you'll see 2 slots at the bottom here, and that's for the release tool. So whichever release tool you're using, whether you're using one of the Y shapes, the little freebies that you can pick up or buy for about $2, or you have a multi-tool, you're gonna slide those with the point towards the outside of the stereo into those slots. And you'll hear a click. Now it's ready to be pulled out. So with 1 in each side, slightly push outboard on the tool and pull the stereo out. Let me give you a blow up, or a close up rather, of how this actually works, because that helps understand which way you're pushing and pulling. So with the notch facing inboard, or the point facing outboard, slide it into the slot there, and you'll see this is the retainer that holds the stereo in. So if I get a good background there where you can see it, as I slide the tool in, you'll see that release pop down. There it is down. So if you pull the tool just a little bit out as you pull the stereo out of the slot, that will help feed that through. To get the tool out, sometimes you have to actually push down just a little bit to get it to release, to be able to pull your tool out. On the back of the stereo, depending on what system you have, you'll have a antenna cable and then up to 3 plugs here. The antenna cable is the shortest. That's the first one that you need to take off. And this is bent a little bit. The antenna cable will be blocked by this black spring-loaded catch. You got to swing that out of the way and then pull the antenna cable up off. There is a little arm here that should keep it from coming off too easy, so you may have to pull it a little bit this way, up and off. Then your stereo is out. If you have the multicolor plug in the top, it's blue, yellow, and green, I believe. You pinch both sides and pull it straight back. It'll come out. There's a tan one and a black one with the catch on this side. You pinch that catch, that plugs, and that unplugs. It's a little bit challenging when you have it only an inch or so out of the console and you're trying to reach in, but seeing it this way makes it a little bit easier before you get there. Then the stereo should slide straight out. Now we're ready to work on the 8 screws that are holding the center console in. There's 2 at the top, T20s. All the screws are the same. All 8 are T20s, Torx bits. 2 at the top here, 2 behind the stereo, 1 on each side, and then 4 underneath. There'll be 1 there, 1 here, 1 there, and 1 here, where this is broken a little bit already. You may find multiples are broken. Most of the time, at least one of these tabs is broken off. Don't worry about it for right now. Once you have those 8 screws loose, we're gonna pull out the little trim pieces that are on either side, stuff the stereo wires back down into the hole best you can. You'll have the up to 3 connectors here. The antenna cable will be coming up through here. Best you can, push those down so they don't catch on it. The 2006 to 2010 cars that have the emergency flasher switch here and the fasten seatbelt airbag light here have 2 more wires, 1 more harness with 2 clips. One is right here in the center, and you pinch that to take it off. And then this one for the airbag light kind of comes across and will be under this area here. You can kind of get it out of the way and then reach your hand down here to reach in. And again, you squeeze the 2 prongs and it should release and come out. There's a small ledge underneath the stereo here on the bottom. So as the console slides out, it may catch on that. You have to lift the front just a little bit. What you're trying to do is get this little ledge up over the HVAC controls that will stay in the car as this console comes out. And that's the process. So now I'm going to set the camera in the car and we'll go take out the one that's in the car and see how it really is when it's in the car. Thanks for joining me. Please like and subscribe. I can always use the support. Stay tuned for the installation in the project car of the double din center console. We'll get this screen put in there and that'll look cool. Thanks for joining me. Take care.